Do you think strip clubs should like have to hire men to be strippers?
I don't fetishize consistency
I
here.
think
I
I
have
think
been very
strip clubs
clear.
I think
Well,
strip clubs
they
should
Fetishize
normally
deny
don't
being
access.
until they see
consistent.
my beautiful body walk in, and then they're like, "We
Listen,
have to
forced
hire you, Phil."
consistency is a
No,
hobby
You
I
horse
have
of
to,
a little
yeah.
mind. Let's
Yeah.
be
I
clear.
think in my tiny little town, since we all know who's Christian, Christians should be denied access to strip clubs to help them not sin.
If they
So
want to, in fact, that's a
yeah,
good.
they
It
should.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Actually.
perfectly
Lactoid.
reasonable.
Topic 2. Lori Smith, a conservative evangelical Christian, has brought a case to the Supreme Court involving the right to refuse service to gay couples. Lori is a website designer who doesn't want to work on wedding sites for same-sex couples. She brings this lawsuit preemptively as no one has actually complained about her policy. She believes that creative workers, specifically, should not be forced to work on projects that conflict with their values. Is there any merit to her claims? Is this a violation of free speech? Should there be any exception to gay public accommodations at all, religious or otherwise? So yeah, this is at the Supreme Court. Amazingly, I don't know how, but it is, and like something to be again noted is that no one has actually brought a complaint against her. The state hasn't actually used any power against her. The state was unaware of her until she made this case. But in any case, she's saying that she's has like she's afraid that it could be used against her. This law that would require her to assist a gay couple. So yeah, curious what you all think on this. Let's go to our friend Lacto.
So, and by the way, if you haven't seen the openings for this one, it's wild. The government's position is wild. But we should all support Lori Smith on two bases. The first one being that websites are intrinsically speech, far more comparable to a blog, and are thus wholly different than services such as food service or operating a riverboat. The former is something which, by very nature, would require someone to write and express thoughts and feelings that they fundamentally disagree with, similar to forcing a Catholic website to make a pro Protestant or a pro atheist, even wedding site, while the latter could be done begrudgingly by someone who does not wish to serve you and can express that he does not wish to serve you, but would be serving you regardless. However, this highlights the second basis of my support for Lori, which is that in a country which has supposedly abolished slavery, it is disgusting that any private citizen who does not wish to serve you with their labor has expressed that they don't wish to serve you, be forced at the barrel of a gun to work for you when they do not wish to. The fact that we have accepted this is not only unconstitutional in that it ignores freedom of association, but more importantly, it rejects the foundational right that we have to do what we want with our own bodies and with our own labor. The Democrats were the party of slavery, and they're proving that they are still the party of slavery.
Okay, all right. Go to that, please.
Yeah, so I kind of knew that Lactoid and I would almost be 100% on the same side on this. So instead of like trying to prepare a big opening that just agrees with everything he said, I figured I'd read a quote from the sorry, I can never fucking say this. John Milton in 1644 to Parliament defending free speech, the Areopagitica. I know I Cal Rich can fucking
Areopagitica.
say it appropriate. Yeah, I just can never get it out. But nevertheless, for to distrust the judgment and the honesty of one who hath but a common repute in learning, and never get offended, as not to count him fit to print his mind without a tutor or examiner, lest he should drop a schism or something of corruption, is the greatest displeasure and indignity to a free and knowing spirit that can be put upon him. So what I'm really talking about here is chilling effect doctrine, right? Like something we've kind of understood for hundreds of years. She has every right to sue. And the reason she has every right to sue is well-established case law that begins with Lamont v. Postmaster General in 1965, right? It was the government's policy prior to 1965 that if communist propaganda or, quote, communist political propaganda, end quote, was mailed to someone, that an individual had to go to the post office and they had to affirm that they did indeed want and consented to the communist propaganda, which created what's known as a chilling effect. The idea being that just because someone hasn't sued her or forced her to make a website that goes against her values, she has perfect standing in court to say that there is a chilling effect. The idea that someone could sue me. And we have a great example of this in the famous cake, gay cake wedding, right? This case is a prime example of slap laws or slap lawsuits or strategic lawsuit against public participation. Every person involved in this process knows that at any one point in time, someone could come along, could attempt to force them to do something egregiously against their values, right? So a Christian website could, a Christian web developer could exist, and then some Muslim activist organization could come and say, we want you to make a website that says death to all Christians. Sharia law is coming. Please kill your closest Christian, yada, 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 right? And then they could sue them and they could bury them in court and they could destroy their business, right? And so because of the existence of slaps and because of the chilling effect doctrine, she has every right to sue, regardless of whether or not anyone has actually brought a case against her. And we should have freedom of association, freedom of speech. So we should all support her in trying to fight for her rights and your rights.
KOE Nation.
So, the Supreme Court, the 9 kings that rule our lives, comes into the forefront once again. Now, you've heard it a couple of times, you're going to hear it a few more times. Freedom of association is one of the most fundamental freedoms that we have. If you don't have freedom of association, you really don't actually have freedom if you have no freedom of association. Now, if she wins the case or loses the case, it's going to be on one of these two things. First of all, if she loses the case, she has no damages. So that's usually something that you need to be able to demonstrate in order to have any kind of reason to even be in front of the Supreme Court. So if they throw it out for that reason, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. But if she does win, you got to keep in mind, folks, this doesn't pass the shoe on the other foot test. We wouldn't compel someone who was gay, no, you will make this website for this gay conversion camp. You will do it. We would think we would all find that abhorrent. And so I think, this woman might end up winning based on, you can't really force somebody to create an expression that's against their own, whatever their morals happen to be. And, Christianity, that it is what it is. It's one of those don't follow club rules, you don't get club privileges for Christianity. One thing that I would like to come out of this case, though, if we do get a good kind of sweeping ruling, I would like for all businesses in America to at least have one consistent standard of association. Because you have things like the social media companies that have complete freedom of association. Unabashed, unfiltered, completely how they see fit, freedom of association. Meanwhile, like Fabian Liberty brought up, the baker in Colorado, he does not enjoy the same level of freedom of association that, say, Twitter does, or YouTube does, or Facebook does. And so I would like just everybody to be on one, whatever that standard is, I would like us all to be on one even playing field so we know what the standards and the rules are that everybody has to play by going forward in this great American experiment. And folks, like I always say, these lips of mine, they can speak no evil. And with that, I yield back to you beautiful people.
Wick, please.
Certainly. While it would be nice that we could have one simple standard that applies to everyone equally, I think that this is one of those cases where we have to take context into account. A website is a much different product than, say, a restaurant, right? Or something like that. It is much more expressive in nature. It isn't as necessary. You don't need a website to live, whereas you do need food to live. So it makes sense to have certain laws in place that a business has to serve, right? Different people who come in who want to buy groceries or these things like that, because again, that makes sense. When it comes to this specific case, I'm torn, right? Yes, I am agreeing with the rest of the panel that no one should be forced to make an expression that they do not want to associate with or agree with. I think that's important. At the same time, how will this law, if it is decided in her favor, how will this law be used to weaken other laws that require businesses to serve minorities or LGBTQ individuals? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I cannot prognosticate to that degree. I'm just saying that is a concern we should be aware of. But at the merits of the case, I think she has a great point, right? And I'm sympathetic to what she's trying to do here. Much like I, as a Twitch panel host, should not be forced to have any single individual guest on as much as some guests would like to force me to, right? Neither should someone be forced to make a website espousing a position they just do not hold. And yeah, that's my take. There you go.
Corey.
Yeah, I echo actually many of the same sentiments that Wick just espoused. And also, even though I guess I'm going to overlap with Lactoid, it's probably going to be for well, it will likely be for different reasons. Where it's like, yeah, I agree this person shouldn't be compelled to make a website, but I think that's so. I'm operating under the assumption, I could be wrong, that generally speaking, you know, website designers, it's like contract work or primarily contract work, and thus, given that that's the nature of the work, they should not be compelled to like take on any contract that they don't want to. I view that as slightly different, as like Wick just said, in terms of like service industry, or even baking a cake for someone, or serving food, etc., etc. That's pretty much like the only distinction so far that I would make. Of like, this seems to be contract work, and I don't think you can really compel someone to take on a contract, and they have the right to refuse to take on a contract. And I'll leave it there for now.
Let's go to I'm not looking. I mean, Stabby, please.
You're muted.
Yep, muted.
Son of a biscuit.
It's still muted. Yeah, well, hear static.
There's definitely sound now.
Still can't hear you.
Oh, darn.
While you work on that, let's go to Aiko, who's also muted.
It's an epidemic. It's spreading.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I got it now. Yeah, so I just wanted to respond to some of
Jesus.
the things I heard from panels before, because I think there's considerable agreement on some of the merits of this case. So, but there are some distinctions that I would have expected to have heard by now that I haven't heard yet. So let me just start with the idea that the law does appear to make a difference between, and this may change because of this case, between events and people. So you can, it's one thing to say that I won't serve gay people or I won't serve Black people or something like that. It's another thing, though, to say that I won't serve like a same-sex wedding, because that's a particular kind of an event. And it's possible to make a distinction between those two things. But another issue that I'm a little surprised no one's brought up yet is the idea that this is about Colorado state law and not about like a federal law. And so this is the Supreme Court opining on a state law, which has some implications with regards to whether or not it's more appropriate for the federal government to settle these matters or for states to settle it within their own jurisdictions. But I do think that one thing we can assume is that this person is going to win her case, because, as has been pointed out a couple of times before, nobody brought action on this. Nobody tried to make her design a website for their same-sex wedding. My suspicion is she kept waiting for somebody to do that so that she could sue, got frustrated by it, and then decided to sue without it happening. So, which makes me wonder, how she has standing on this. But also, the Supreme Court tends not to take cases that are theoretical in nature. They tend to wait until something happens in the real world, and then they take the case. And if you try to preemptively do it on the theory that it might happen at some point in the future, usually the Supreme Court will not take your case. The fact that they took her case anyway tells me that they have a predetermined outcome in mind, and that that predetermined outcome is that she's going to win the case. I suspect that she'll win it even on a 6-3, because I think this is probably something that all the conservatives are going to agree on. Anyway, that's what I expect. I just wanted to add one last thing, and that is the reason I think some of these distinctions are important is because you can say things in one direction, and then when you try to flip it around, it doesn't. Like, for instance, Phil says that his lips can speak no evil. But if I tried to pass a law that banned Phil's lips from speaking evil, I expect he would oppose that law.
True, although it wouldn't affect me in any way because these lips, as I said,
Right? Yeah.
can speak no evil.
Which means you wouldn't have standing. So let's go to our friend Stabby.
Can you guys hear me now?
Mhm.
Okay, good. All right. Sorry, guys. This is in my state, actually. I live here. I think I know what's actually going on. ICAO, you had said something. I don't think she was just waiting for this to be something so she could have her moment in the spotlight. I do think she's being funded. Here, we kind of know the groups that are funding her. And we do think she wants this case. There's just a tiny problem, and it is that the Phillips case, the Denver Cake Bakery case, it wasn't what Focus on the Family wanted. It wasn't what these organizations who are helping to fund all of this and what they've been saying they want. And what it did is the Denver Bakery case said that it could put undue pressure on people by religious groups, and that the Supreme Court in the state of Colorado needed to see that portion of the case. But because it was refiled in the wrong jurisdiction by Phillips, super boring, and I'm sorry, but this is how it happened, that had to be thrown out because it was outside of the jurisdiction of the judge and where it was filed. So nobody really won anything and nobody really lost anything, but he doesn't have to bake cakes for trans people. He doesn't have to bake cakes for gay people. What this woman is doing is trying to make sure that we have an active religious freedoms in any given town can actually push out. You don't have to serve them. You can ask them to leave the store, etc. Because the state of Colorado, our anti-discrimination law is for 3 classes. It's a protected class of employment, it is a protected class of accommodation at the business, and it is a protected area for housing. Now, you do have an obligation to serve customers here, but you can still refuse the right to serve anybody. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to extend this to say my religious beliefs means this gay neighbor may not go to any of these stores here. They're trying to push this Christian ideal of, and it's focused on the family. The Christians in Colorado are not like this. Okay, I want to make that pretty clear. It's a focus on the family initiative, and they are trying everything in their power to push this as far as they can. So this is basically the bakery case part 2. Personally, I don't think she should have to make a website, but it should be obvious to everybody that they are trying to overstep their bounds and inhibit the speech of other people to even express that they are gay in any given area in this state. So that's kind of what's happening. And they're not getting ahead with Colorado because Colorado anti-discrimination laws and DORA doesn't touch anything but housing, employment, and accommodation in businesses. That's one of the problems with this is we don't have an expanded enough thing to deal with these complaints. And this woman would actually have to have somebody demand this website. So that's how this happened.
I'm very glad I have you here. You're adding a lot to this,
Yay.
Stabby. Dibby.
I agree with I think most of the people on the panel. I think she shouldn't have to make any websites that she doesn't want to. That seems reasonable to me. But I wonder how far people that are in favor of that would take that, because I'd be in favor of saying, hey, if you have a business and a black guy walks in and you don't want to serve black people, you should be able to refuse service, right? Because they're black. I wonder, if the other people who are in favor of her having the right to refuse service in this case with the same-sex couples on the wedding side would extend it to that, right? So in person, just saying, hey, I don't want blacks in my store. Because I would personally, but I wonder if you would.
I wouldn't.
No.
No, that's where my line
It's
is.
a fundamentally different thing.
Why?
So context matters in these cases. So when we talk about the forcing someone to do an expression that they fundamentally disagree with, in this case about same-sex marriage, right? Again, as I understand it, she isn't saying I won't do work for gay people. She will, as I understand it. It's that she will not provide this specific service for them because it violates her expression. That's how I understand it.
She is absolutely saying that she will not do work for gay people.
In the article they linked, they said that
she won't do websites for gay weddings. Yeah.
Okay, so let's make it a little.
So if a gay person
can we modify it?
I'm sure she's not going to celebrate that either.
Doobie, can we modify this? Let's keep it as close to apples as we can. What if it's interracial weddings that she won't support?
I don't think she should have to. I don't think that she should be required
You,
by
you
law
should be able to
have to.
you should be
But
able to
it's real
refuse
quick.
any customer for any reason. Like I should be able to have a no N-word sign on my restaurant and like
Powerful.
refuse to serve anyone that has like skin tone that I deem too dark in my restaurant. And that's for
Or
the
no
betterment
C
of
words
society.
and not let white people in. You could do that too.
Well,
right?
Aiko,
Yeah,
just
same
something,
difference.
just something to keep in mind. I'll never forget this. It was a really good lecture by Murray Rothbard, and he talked about, let's say that there's John Q, owner of some business, and this person really hates redheads. And the redheads in his area make up 10% of everybody in the area. Well, he's cost himself, his bigotry against redheads is now going to cost him 10% in every area of his business now. So whatever bigotries you have, you end up paying for them. And so I don't like the idea of it, but it is something that at least they have to end up paying that tax for their whatever their illogical bigotries are. But to me, it's like I'm a farmer. I want everybody to eat my grain. Everybody in God's creation is entitled to a full belly.
Somehow, I
So
don't think those lunch counters in the South were losing business over keeping black people out of the.
Yeah, it might be like from a business perspective, like beneficial, but here's the other element, right? All of you are in favor of like discriminatory measures for a business perspective. Just maybe there's some lack of consistency on it, right? So the first thing I think about is strip clubs. Do you think strip clubs should like have to hire men to be strippers?
I don't fetishize consistency.
I
here.
think
I've
think
been very
strip clubs.
clear.
I think
well,
strip clubs
they
should
normally
deny
don't
access.
until they see my beautiful body walk in, and they're like, "We have to
Support
hire you, Phil."
consistency is a
No,
hobby
I-
of a little mind.
Yeah.
I think in my tiny little town, since we all know who's Christian, Christians should be denied access to strip clubs to help them not sin.
If they
So-
want to, in fact, that's a
Yeah,
good.
they
It
should.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Lactoid.
perfectly
Lactoid.
reasonable.
So
Can,
no
can we make a
crucifix is allowed.
distinction, just real quick? Can we make a distinction between like services such as housing,
Needs.
food, things like that,
And lap
versus
dances.
Why?
versus
Why would you make Why would
things-
you make that distinction?
because
You
these
don't
are
have to-
different
you don't have
types
to
of
make-
services.
you don't have to make
right?
that distinction, but there's another distinction that you do have to make, and I just mean as a matter of law, not in terms of like what's satisfying Lactoid's question here. But I'm just asking you, Lactoid, as a lawyer, I think you'll understand this answer, and that is we have protected classes, and then we have levels of protection, as I think
Mhm.
you've pointed out before.
Strict, intermediate, all that dumb shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a big difference, I think, in and these levels of protection that speak to this are designed to make a distinction between not having redheads at your place if redheads aren't like discriminated against on a regular basis in a society, and not having black people at your lunch counter. Like the law at least makes those distinctions. You might not agree with those distinctions or the way that happens, but legally that is a way of saying, okay, consistency. Consistency can be more complicated. You have to explain inconsistencies, but it doesn't mean that you can't have them.
Well, so technically, so you're right. I disagree with the law, and I disagree with the scrutiny framework that's set up. And there is a
Sure.
3-tier, right? There's the strict, intermediate, and then
Mhm.
rational basis, which is essentially how. And this is all due to political influence, right? But basically, how it is there's this arbitrary framework set up where the courts have decided that if you want to discriminate against like on racial bases, you have to like do it. You need to have like a perfect reason to do it. There can't be any other reason why you're doing it. Like you have to be like absolutely spot on. For intermediate, that's where they put gender. Now, why they put gender there as opposed to race? Political. I mean, very obviously, I think like the appetite for like discrimination based on gender is a lot more. It's a lot more in the American public than at the time, especially as
It's so you don't have to hire a woman as Santa Claus at the mall.
Right. The idea was like, well, we just recognize and appreciate that women are different, although that's been changing a lot lately. And then they put that into like the intermediate scrutinary. But like on the principle, I guess I hate the framework because I think it just basically sets up an arbitrary framework to get around the principle, which is, we all recognize there's a lot of pitfalls that come with mandating that people associate with people they don't want to. And when it comes to like strip clubs, for example, there's a clear example of like, well, fuck, like we don't like clearly it would put this business like the strip club out of business if they were mandated to hire like male strippers, like when their clientele is mostly men who come to like watch women strippers. But then the exact same argument could be used for like, well, what if they live in a racist town and like the clientele doesn't want to see black strippers? Why is it really like philosophically different that like they're allowed to be discriminatory to cater to their audience if it is based on gender reasons, But if they're racist, well, now all of a sudden, no, you can't do that. Like,
I have a super clear distinction I can help with. I think,
Okay.
and I think we'll all agree with it. Like, if you don't want to make wedding dresses that are specifically for lesbian women, okay, like you shouldn't have to. If you have your business based around your religion and that is one of your selling points, I understand why you wouldn't want to do that. However, if you are at the clerk and county's office and you're a Christian and you can't give a person their permit to marry, you need to get the fuck out of your job, because now you're just discriminating against them. So I think that we can actually distinguish this. It's very uncomfortable. I'm sick to death of the constant, endless complaints of the poor victim Christians. I'm so over it. But I also don't think, I think that the federal government is strong enough to make sure that all of the religions, all of the non-religious, and all of these different groups can actually get along, even if Uncle Sam has to come in and be all like, you kids behave. Like, I think we can make this work. So if we can make non-essential services or things to that effect work, then we're fine. If there's somebody at the courthouse who's refusing to cooperate because they're Christian, well, maybe you're a little too Christian for a big girl job. Like, bye, see ya.
It's like if you're a
The problem
pacifist,
with
you should be
your
in the military, right? Like, I
Yep.
mean, like if you're
Yeah,
if you
you
don't
snuck a
believe in the
premise.
laws, right, you shouldn't probably be a cop.
You snuck a premise
Mhm.
into your example that is kind of the real key of the issue here, right? Which is that you, in one instance, you talked about a private citizen performing work and freedom of association for that individual, and the other incident you talked about a government employee, right? And like the real crux here is the state forcing freedom of association, right? Like, if you did an you didn't do an apples comparison, right? Like you changed the race from sexuality, which I understand, right? But the problem with the issuing of a license at a government office is that if that individual is discriminating, then that is the state discriminating on the basis of race, right?
Well, really quickly, that's something that Colorado does cover. If somebody is in your shoe store and it's a bridal shoe store or something, and you don't realize that they're gay until like their girlfriend comes in and it's the same sex or whatever, and then you decide to kick them out, you're not allowed to do that. If they use the facilities, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to say
You should be
"You
able
can't
to.
go to the bathroom." No, you shouldn't. You cannot say you cannot go to the bathroom because you are disabled. You cannot go to the bathroom because you are white or black or trans.
You should be
or
able to.
gay. No, you shouldn't.
Of course, you
Why?
should be able to.
Why do you want to enslave people to the system?
Yeah, I
It's
shouldn't have
about
to work for
providing
anybody.
access. It's about providing
No.
access to essential services.
In the state of
Access to
Colorado.
my labor.
Yeah,
In the
right.
state
You
of
leave
Colorado.
the- right. That's
What
slavery.
happens to what
If it's my
happens to leaving
property
up
that
to the
I
state?
spent labor
What
building,
happens? Do you guys agree with leaving it up to the states?
No, I don't know.
No,
Oh, now okay, beautiful.
Well,
can
I mean,
Persuasion.
yeah, Scottson
But no,
and
that's my
I'm not a
point.
constitutional conservative
point.
that's like
He doesn't
got a
believe in
hard-on
leaving
for
anything
states'
up to the
rights.
state.
That's
Right,
my
like,
He
it's
doesn't
not-
believe in states.
I'm a libertarian.
Listen, in our state, it does matter. You cannot deny a person. If somebody in a wheelchair comes into a Target and you own the franchise of the Target in my town, you can't go, ugh, wheelchair people aren't allowed to use our bathrooms. Get out. You're not allowed to do that.
Right,
Not
and I'm
only you're not
saying
allowed
you
to do
should
that,
be
you're not
able
allowed-
to.
And I'm saying you're wrong.
Well, hold on, wait.
Why
Should
do you
a
believe in slavery?
should a strip club be forced to hire a
Genocide,
stripper
slavery,
in a
it's all the
wheelchair?
same. Everything's a Nazi.
So,
everything's
can I-
slavery, everything's
Wait, I want to
genocide.
answer. I want to answer that question real quick. Should a
No, we
should
don't
a
have
strip club?
forced to hire.
Okay,
I was talking
so
about accommodation. No, listen. Remember 3. I'm just going to give it to you guys in there. I know you don't read much, but God, this is getting ridiculous. We have 3 realms: housing.
I'm asking you
accommodations.
though. I understand like the law is
I
one
know,
thing.
I know.
I'm asking you like what because
Right. No.
you just-
We don't have that. We don't have that with like that's covered under safety by Colorado laws. So if you are
Okay, but he's not
disabled-
asking about the
I'm-
law.
I'm-
He's
I'm not-
asking
I'm saying,
you
yeah,
why the
because-
laws are
because-
justified.
right because you said the a certain
Because-
thing. You said a certain thing was the law before, and Scott said it shouldn't be that way. And so and you said yes, it should. And so my question for you is: should it also be that a strip club should have to hire a stripper who's in a wheelchair?
No, because that's not safe, and that's covered under laws that that's covered under how that would be a safe workforce. Are you asking if I agree with these laws? Because I
Yeah.
What if
I
it
agree.
was safe? What if
Obviously.
what if you can prove that it was safe?
But
And,
this is not an apples to apples, right?
I want to
Well,
answer
no.
the
Yeah,
question.
no, let her answer. Stabby,
You're also allowed-
what's your opinion?
you're also allowed to, like, they can do the hiring process as long as there's nothing in there that can prove that they're not hiring because the stripper is black, not hiring because of, something else.
What's your
They're going to
opinion?
hire
Like
the previous
disabled?
We
girl.
don't give a fuck.
My opinion is it's fine.
Ask
My
you, why
opinion
is
is
it
that it's fine.
justified?
Listen, okay, let me put it this way since you're not listening. I walk
We're
in.
listening. You're just not following the conversation. Or
Are you
the
gonna
She
let
said
me
it's
finish this?
fine.
Are you going to let me finish this? I walk in. There are 3 other women beside me. They are 10 years younger than me. They're all fucking gorgeous. And they only have 2 slots open. Are they allowed to not hire me, a 38-year-old woman who's about to be 39? Absolutely. Of course they are. They're allowed to not hire me because there are 2 other girls better for the job.
It's
Okay.
not,
That's all
you're
there
not
is to it.
engaging with the question.
You're not
Just
engaging.
saying.
And
Let's go to we got to move on though.
They're going to hire somebody who's not in
let's-
a wheelchair.
Let's go to Corey, then Wick.
should they
So-
be able to?
Okay, well, I want to understand your position better, Lactoid. Are you like basically of the opinion that like pretty much like it's freedom of association and like under no circumstance can you ever be compelled to no one's entitled to your labor no matter what?
Yeah,
pretty much your offer?
pretty much. And you're gonna
Yeah.
give me some pretty hard bullets to buy, and I'm gonna bite them voraciously.
Yeah. So like I think I know how you answer, but like based off of previous sort of scenario. So as in like
Doctors,
like, yeah,
pharmacists.
exactly. So like a doctor has the right to refuse treatment, like life-saving treatment, on the basis of skin color.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. You don't own my labor. I'm not your slave.
I just want to understand
Yes.
that. That's all.
Ultimately, that's
So,
what it
like,
comes down to.
let me since we're talking about strippers, right? Like let me put to you this way. I think one strip club ought to be able to hire nothing but skinny cokehead looking girls, right? To be strippers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an establishment nearby, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to exclusively hire morbidly obese females to be strippers, right? And they're all going to have names of really large vehicles, like welcome to the stage Bronco, right? And then like the Ford Bronco, and the next one's going to be Tahoe, right? Like we're going to use these as like, right, and it's going to be a selling point, and people are going to come from all over to check out my large stripper truck inspired redneck safe haven for men that like gigantic women, and you can have your skinny place and we'll all be fucking happier. Like it's stupid, this idea that you think that like that we need to enforce this mechanism, that we're gonna like somehow make racism go away or something if we use the law to stop this. What are you gonna do?
Wait.
I think there's a place like
I'm
that
from
up in South
Colorado. The
Dakota,
fact that you
Fabian.
used fat stripper, wait. The fact that you used fat strippers in one and you were like, we're gonna name them Bronco. Clearly, you do not know the women who will get into extra, extra large Broncos cheerleaders costumes.
All right,
for
let's go
teams up here.
to Wick, and then I want to jump in here.
Maybe that was the joke.
So when we talk about like these kind of things, like to take it away from the absurd, right, and get it back down to more of Corey's question, right, when it comes to life-saving treatment and access, providing access to minorities to things like restaurants or grocery stores or doctors or other forms of healthcare, right? We have had a world, right? We know what it looks like when we did not require protections, right? It was horrific. And now I understand, right, that it could violate some rights and things like that that you believe you have. But at the end of the day, right, like providing access to these things is more important than your whatever it is, your fucking ANCAP fantasies that you have at night, right? It's just more important than that. And we recognize that
except we didn't.
society
lie.
can overcome, right, your silliness and not allow you
No
to
one in
hold
particular, and
hostage,
everyone specifically
right?
except
because
you.
we are not your hostages.
Society.
I want to be very clear.
No,
You are not.
You're
going to be
holding
allowed
Neither
to be
of
a
us.
terrorist.
We're not
You're
yours
not going to be
either.
allowed to, if we're going to use hyperbolic language and call me okay with slavery and genocide, I'm going to say that you're a fucking terrorist. Right?
Hostage
You
to
are
my
being
own
a
labor?
fucking terrorist by
Right.
holding people hostage.
By not
and
giving you
preventing
what you want from
life-saving
me.
access, right? Because
Look, just because
for
you're
whatever reason,
triggered
you're a
doesn't make
racist.
me a
Wait,
terrorist.
hold on.
I'm
Really,
just
And
saying,
you're
Triggered Wick,
living in
you guys
terror.
have seen
But-
No,
Triggered Wick.
really, the slaves
guys
were
have
holding the slave
seen
owners
Triggered
hostage by
Wick.
not giving the cotton
You
over.
guys
Really,
have
I
seen
mean,
Triggered Wick, and this is not Triggered Wick. This
No,
is
no,
this
again,
is
you fail to
mildly
understand.
amused Wick. The
No,
WIC that deals with
again,
children, with
Wick,
mild-mannered children who have
Wick, again,
precociously gotten out of their playpens to play with the big boys, right? And they are going around
Terrorist.
like, yes,
That's a
very much
ridiculous. That's
so.
a
no,
ridiculous
Wick,
term.
You
It doesn't
you're
even fit the
calling me
definition.
being okay with slavery and not and saying, "Oh, that's not ridiculous at all." But when I say
Hey,
that
so
you're
Wick,
being a
can you
terrorist,
maybe
I
and
maybe
can
I'm
you're
not
I
being
can
understanding
give you the
Wick,
definition of
that's not
slavery. Well, hold on.
fine.
listen,
I can
listen,
give you
listen.
the
That's
definition of slavery
crazy.
and
Well,
show the
that's great.
direct
I thought
link.
better of you because that's
I
literally crazy.
Listen,
Give the
can show you
definition
the
of
link.
slavery, and then we're gonna go to
Can I
Doobie.
just
Well,
No,
can I?
we just move things on. Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Okay. So I can explain to you why it's slavery, like very easily. The direct link is like, are you forcing somebody to work for somebody else without their consent? The definition of slavery. If answer yes, then maybe it's slavery. Are the slaves holding the owners of the plantations hostage by not handing over the cotton when they don't want to hand over the cotton? I mean, I guess if we're under the most pedantic language, but we all recognize it's not what actually is happening. Terrorism, on the other hand, is when you try to enact political change through a terror, violent or fear and violence campaigns on civilians. In what way are we being terrorists? It doesn't make any sense.
When
By
you say,
definition.
as a doctor, I will not perform life-saving treatment on this on black people, right? I'm not going to perform life-saving treatment on black people. That
That's
does
violence.
inspire no, but it does inspire terror. It is not violence, but it does inspire fear
How?
and terror, right, in a community. It
How,
absolutely
how does
does.
he do
Knowing that the
dude, you're
doctors in your
stretching
area
so
will
hard.
not serve you if you get into an accident, if you need a blood transfusion, if you get cancer, that you will not be able to have access to life-saving treatment just because of your skin color. Yes, that absolutely
Access
is a
to my
fearful risk.
labor. Access to my
Real
labor.
quick, real quick. Let me just say this again. You fail to understand history, right? So when you invoke Jim
Oh,
Crow,
God damn it.
right? The problem is that we are against the government being involved in limiting freedom of association. That's exactly what Jim Crow laws did. So when you're trying to go back to a time when a large portion of the population was racist, saying we used to live under that time that you want. No, what we're talking about is freedom of association. Jim Crow laws actively kept people from being able to integrate. It was enforced separation, and it was laws that forced violations of freedom of association. There were businesses and restaurants that wanted to integrate, and schools that wanted to integrate, that were forced by the power of the state to not being able to do so. So that's
All
not
right,
not going back to the
so
previous
I
time.
want to move on to DB, but Scott's absolutely right. Jim Crow kept black men from being inside white women, an absolutely unnatural state of nature. All right, so let's go to Doobie, please.
Yeah, I guess I'm just like, I'm trying to understand Wick's point, right? So, it's
It
so
doesn't have
well, I'm trying to be charitable, right? So, like the terrorism thing, that on its face, that seems like ridiculous, right? Would you extend that to
Look,
food
I'm going to
then?
be
So,
clear with the terrorism
if I have
thing.
a restaurant and I don't want to serve whites in my restaurant, am I terrorizing them by saying, "Hey, go somewhere else"? Is that going to
No,
terrorize the community?
but
Well,
if you
then,
were a doctor and you're saying, I'm not going to provide a life-saving treatment to you because you're
okay,
white.
what if I'm like a therapist or a psychologist or something, and I don't want to provide mental health care to people based on their skin color? Am I terrorizing that community? Is it just the medical
I think,
doctors that
mental health
terrorizing?
is just as important as physical health.
Come
Yeah,
on,
so I
that's
would
kind
say
of
yes.
that's
But
ridiculous.
I'm going to be clear with you. The only reason I'm
That's
using
fine.
such hyperbolic, and I admit it's hyperbolic terminology, is because again, I've been called a genocide apologist today, right? And I've been called a slave owner
Okay,
today.
but when that
So
happens,
Well, you're not a
you're
you know
slave
running
what?
away
owner.
from the
If you can
consequences of
accuse me
your
of
political position.
genocide, and you
Yeah.
can accuse me of owning
Yeah,
slaves,
except I
right?
was
The
able to
reality
prove
is,
both.
stop owning
Oh my
slaves,
God.
then, Wick.
Then you know
Dude,
what?
I
reality
I
is,
will
Wick,
accuse you of
hold on.
terrorism.
I
Then
do
I'll be
want to hear
okay.
from Doobie. He's been waiting
I'm
patiently
just
like
saying,
the rest of the
the
animals.
reality is, if you are in favor of a government at all, right, that has rules and regulations that it enforces with violence, right, you have to bite the bullet, accept the fact, like a big boy, that yeah, sometimes your government will have to kill people to make sure that the rules that you want people to follow are followed, right? That is just going to happen, right? Not everybody's going to want to play along, and if they don't play along, they either get put in a cage or they die, right? That's just true, right? So I don't know why you'd run away from that.
We can mitigate the chances of that happening, right?
Sure.
To almost nothing.
But
Not
you can't.
nothing.
No, not
Not
almost
nothing.
nothing. That's silly.
Actually, Actually, Doobie, you brought up a really good analogy, and Wick bit the bullet. So I want to engage in some consequential analysis of this, right? Wick said,
Oh.
presume that there's at least one therapist out there, right, who is a racist and does not want to serve Black people, only wants to help people in their racial category, and is highly trained in multiple modalities of therapy. And he said we should make it illegal for this person to not serve Black people. So now a young Black teen that's having issues goes into this therapist's office and they cannot refuse them. And what they do is they bring in their own bias and their racism, and they're forced to give mental health to a vulnerable Black teenager that is suicidal. And because of this, because they already have these racist feelings and they have a difficulty empathizing, the quality of care is not only bad, they might even actively let slip things that further lower this person's self-esteem. And so my question, Wick, is why do you want to use the power of the state to make young Black vulnerable teens commit suicide?
Because you're sneaking in some things there. You're saying that this person wouldn't want to be able to serve this people because they're racist, when they could in fact say, well, you know what? I know Black people make less money on average, so I know I'll make more money if I fill up my slots with white people instead. And so that, you're slipping things in, as you accused Stabby of doing earlier, right? And
So your
they're
answer
easy
is
to
that
slip in
Black
because your
people
things
are
are
poor?
small and
That's your
insignificant, right?
answer?
But no.
Jesus, fuck you, racist. Now I understand why
Wait,
you want
wait.
these
I believe it
laws.
was
Are
Prime
you
who
not
said we
agree
should be
that on
slipping things
average?
in.
I'm just stating facts. You talk about facts earlier. Like let's look at the facts. Like in America, at least, Black people do have less wealth on average. Is that not true? That is absolutely true.
Do you not understand standard distributions? Like Black wealthy people exist.
Yes, but in the case of statistics, right, and someone who's has an online therapy session, right, and they have limited amount of slots and serves a wider community than just a very local area, right, they can absolutely like make more money if they discriminate, right, in certain cases. Like,
So what you're
absolutely
saying
is true.
is
Now,
that
what I'm
they'll be
saying is,
racist
if you'd
in
let me
ways
finish, but you won't because you don't care about what I'm saying. You care about
you're not
pushing
answering
your
the question.
ideology and your little cult on everyone else, right? That's what you care about. Let's be real here. Like I talk to you like an adult tonight,
I
Fabian, because
care
this is
about
what you
white
are.
people
You are an
using lotion.
ideological
I already
cultist,
said this earlier.
right? That's what you are. Let's be clear. You don't have an original thought or original bone in your body. You're an ideological cultist, right? And that's fine.
Oh yeah.
It's okay to be. Okay.
Okay.
But
I
when we talk
actually
about
came
like
up with
why these
the
things are
Negro
important,
on the
when we
plantation
talk about
argument
why
all
these
on my
things are
own, right?
important,
Like that's an
right? We
original
got to
thought.
look at again, like if you deny access to life-saving things, I'm not talking like a
It's a person of
website.
color, Scott.
I'm not talking a website and things like that. I'm talking about to life-saving medical and mental care, right? Then what you're doing, right, is you're putting these people in a position to fail. And now, if someone does something that is malpractice, then they should be held accountable under the law for engaging in malpractice. Just like any therapy, a therapist who actively pushes someone to commit suicide should be held accountable under the law,
Sure.
regardless
Okay.
of
I wanted to. Okay. So
Yeah, that doesn't answer the question at
Doobie,
all.
and or maybe other people, and long before, right? Wick tried to make a distinction between necessary services and unnecessary services. Things critical to life and things that aren't, like for instance housing. And you said, and you asked why make that distinction. Now you might have stated this before, but maybe I missed it. You tell me, Doobie, or someone. Oh, we'll just go to Doobie. Why wouldn't you make such a distinction?
I just don't think so. First off, what's necessary to life is going to be extremely like up in the air and subjective, right? So you could say for that mentally ill person, access to therapy is necessary to life, right? Or access to medical care.
Let's make a small list, okay? Let's just
Sure.
to get that. All right, the housing, food, medical care should be, and I don't know, water. Like, let's just look at those for now, all right?
Sure. Well, I guess the way that I'm thinking about this is like I can't think of a justification, right, that makes any sense for. So if I'm a homeowner, right, and I don't want dirty, disgusting Albanians, for example, in my home, right, I just don't want them there, right, for whatever reason. What like what right do you or they or anybody else have to say, hey, no, actually, you need to have those people that you really dislike in your home if they want to go in there. You can't turn them away because you dislike them for their race or their culture or whatever it is. Like, it just seems like you're the one that's making the or the people that are in favor of this would be the ones that are making the claim to some kind of control over my property, right? That needs to be justified, and I just haven't heard any justification
So
for it.
that's at least well, maybe I'm only partially making that argument. It depends, I guess, how you look at it. So when it's talking about housing discrimination, it's not just denying access to your particular property. Maybe if if you don't, I'm not even gonna repeat what you said. But if you don't want those type of people in your property, I guess that's up to you. But in terms of like buying housing, getting access to housing, whether it be like rental properties or permanent or some sort of permanent property, then yeah, then there shouldn't be any sort of discrimination, right? Like,
No, I disagree
we
with that.
okay,
So for
sure.
example, let's say I'm a homeowner, right, in this area, and I'm moving out of the area, but I like my neighbors. I understand that this neighborhood has a certain cultural character, certain racial character, racial makeup, an aesthetic, right, that I know my neighbors want to maintain, that I'd prefer to maintain, right? So if somebody pops up who's not part of this aesthetic that we'd like to maintain in this community, then ensure that there is this what's the word I'm looking for? Cohesion,
Yeah,
social, cultural cohesion within the area. Then I think it makes sense to turn them away
you are
for the
arguing
for the good
for
of the community.
racial covenants. Okay, great.
Not even just racial; it could be like religious, right? So like let's say I'm in a like a Hispanic neighborhood, right? And an Indian dude wants to move in. Well, I know that if this happens, everybody around's gonna fucking smell garlic 24/7. So if they because of the culture, right? And if I understand that my neighborhood, my neighbors don't want to smell the Indian spices all fucking day, I might say, hey, actually, no, you just don't fit here, right? If we let you in, you're gonna fuck up the balance of the community. So we got to keep you out.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Are you talking about like in certain suburbs where you guys are fast becoming a minority, so we could actually use
Don't
those
say you
kind of
guys. I'm not
Really?
a white person. Okay.
No, no,
Don't
no,
you
no. You guys,
don't say
no.
you guys.
He's
You
he's
guys, the ones
Mexican.
who want stop. You guys who want the aesthetic, shut up. Whoever wants that aesthetic. When you
Yeah.
quickly
I think
become a
I
minority,
think people wanting
when
to keep
we
the
use
aesthetic
those,
is in all
when you
communities, right? So
quickly become the minority, those same things can be used against you.
sure, okay, but
So
again,
that's what we
this
don't want. The vast majority of the United States does not want this.
well, who cares what the vast majority of the United States wants? I'm talking about what's going on in my community, in my
Because
neighborhood,
you have to
right?
swallow
So
it.
then this is the same kind of
You have to.
argumentation that people use when they're pissed about gentrification. That you guys that you lefties complain about all the time. Oh God, the whites are moving in and pushing out the old neighborhood and buying up all the little fucking
And it's a cope.
bakeries and shit like that. Right.
It's a
This
cope.
is it's the same. No,
Bodegas.
it's the same argument. Yeah, bodegas, bakeries, banderias. If you're in Los Angeles,
It's
right?
not
If
the
the
same
whites are
argument.
coming
It's
in,
absolutely not the same
if the
argument.
whites are coming in and buying up all this stuff, you guys complain about gentrification and about
Nope.
how the culture, the class, whatever of the neighborhood is being like disrupted.
That is absolutely not the argument there. No one argues for not having white people there, especially not white women, right? They are always welcome in black neighborhoods. But I
Gentrification's
think
based.
so all right.
Jesus
So let's
Christ.
go back to your
I'm pro
racial
gentrification.
It's like
just for the
fanatics
record.
here again for some reason.
Good. Gentrification's good for everybody.
Let's go back to the racial covenant which you're arguing for. Okay, all right.
Hold on, not just racial. It could
I
be
know,
like
not
like
just
religious
yes,
stuff.
yes, all kinds of
There's many
acts of
covenants in the
bigotry.
United States.
Great, thank you.
Social cultural cohesion.
Yes, okay.
Newbie, your statement crashed my internet. My God.
Yeah, all right.
God.
This is so terrible. He's a nice
It's
guy
not even
too.
terrible. It's
No.
totally
Also, wouldn't we
reasonable.
need
So-
to repeal the 14th
No,
Amendment?
Prime
for that
guys,
to
you
work?
literally believe in this. Let me
I-
ask you a question, Prime
Oh
guys.
boy.
Right? Do you think that it's a violation of white people's rights when you have restaurants that receive specific grants let me do a better one, like DoorDash, right? When they say, look at black-owned restaurants. Do you want to support black-owned restaurants, right? And they put Black-owned restaurants first as a means of helping Black entrepreneurs in the neighborhood, right?
All right.
That's
All right. What does that have to
privileging
do?
one race,
What does
right?
that have to do with what I'm talking about? Right. I'm talking about critical services. Right. So
Well, is food not a critical service?
no, that's having that's
Especially
your
during
business.
COVID.
No. That's
Mhm.
why no, that doesn't work. Nice try.
I can't leave.
No,
I'm gonna
nice.
die.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would
whatever.
have died without DoorDash.
Lactoid. Nice try,
You
Fred.
locked me in
DoorDash is
my
privileging
Ah,
Black businesses. Is that wrong?
Lactoid. Nice try. No,
Should be able to
that
know.
is
Should the
supporting.
government fine
No,
DoorDash?
that's supporting a business, a specific business, not a specific person's access to food, right? So, like, you know the difference, Scott. Lactoid. Okay, all right. You would argue that in court, lactoid. So,
Okay, so hold on.
Just
So
like
hold on.
she's gonna win
Here's
in
the
this
problem.
case right
so
here.
look,
So here's the
look,
problem.
come on, come up with an example. If you're gonna ask me something, come with an example that has anything to do with what I'm talking about. That doesn't, okay?
It does.
Whatever.
It
It
does.
doesn't.
I can show you.
I
It is
don't-
by
oh my God, you're
necessity
distracting me from-
discrimination against white businesses.
Okay, that's cute. Okay, not what I'm talking about right now. Great. So we're moving on. Back to Doobie.
So
Doobie.
you won't answer? Got it.
Sure. Yes. Not your nonsensical bullshit questions. Doobie.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
know
talking
when someone's
about.
running
So, oh my
scared.
God! Shut up! Racial competence. All right. So you're in favor of racial competence, right?
As you are.
You're
too.
saying that. Shut up. Shut up. Unless you need me to assist, which I will happily do. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, shut up.
All right, there you go.
We lost Wick.
He's the worst. Okay. Oh, hopefully Wick will be back soon. Okay, back to racial competence. Look, we only have. God, I'm gonna take up all this time. So you're saying that if a person buys a property, right, then they should be able to design what that neighborhood looks like in perpetuity.
I think people can have like an interest, whether it's like a real or like imagined, in maintaining the aesthetic of the community that they're raised in.
I
think
know
that's
they have an
totally
interest.
fine.
No,
Yeah,
we-
so let them have that interest, and if that interest leads to them to ensuring
that
the aesthetic remains, because by not allowing Black or brown or white people into the area, that seems totally fine.
so that interest over rides other people's lives, like their access to like shelter, and their access to the ability to find better services, right? Because obviously different neighborhoods have different services they may or may not have access to. So them having that aesthetic is number one, most important thing.
It's not blocking their access to all property or all of these things. It's just my specific thing that I own, right? So I'm making the decision not to allow them to. If my neighbor says, "Hey, the fuck the aesthetic," and sells to them, well, hey, that the neighbor has that right to do that.
Okay,
But
so
but my desire to maintain the aesthetic absolutely trumps their desire to get access to whatever the fuck.
okay,
Can I ask a question real quick?
um, sure. But I do want to get back to this line of questioning. Go ahead.
Okay, I got you. So if that neighborhood aesthetic, and we were talking about eminent domain earlier, if that neighborhood aesthetic does that, do you think I would be very successful in a scam that makes sure that you guys have to pay 5 times the housing price to the people to get them out of your neighborhood? I would run one of those for fun.
Yeah, maybe
I
you
do
should.
appreciate the circling back to our earlier eminent domain talk. Well done. Well done. Like it's
Just for fun. Sorry, go ahead, Prime.
In the comedy world, that's called a callback. Okay.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So fuck. What was the last thing you said, Dibby? I apologize.
Yeah, I think that my desire to sell my property to somebody that would maintain the aesthetic trumps their desire to get access to whatever services or housing, whatever.
Okay. So do they have other rights? So if you think that there are any rights that are either intrinsic or shouldn't be trumped by anything else, right? So like do you think access to food and water, should that ever be trumped by someone else's preferences?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Oh, how so?
So like, let's say, somebody was like starving out on the street or something, right? And for some reason, the only place they could get food was my house, right? This is the only place they could do it. I didn't want to give it to them. So they broke into my house, ate my fucking food, drank my water, and shat in my toilet, right? I would say they should be in prison. They should be jailed for this because they violated my property rights. They've stolen my property. They've eaten my property. They shit in my property. So yeah, fuck them, right? So I have the right to deny access to anything that I own.
So
Well, but what if it's the government though? Now let's go just to call back to what Stabby. But as it seems like there's limits.
The
as is-
government, well, hold on, yeah, well, the government has an interest in saying, hey, we understand your desire to maintain the aesthetic, but our desire to have a cohesive culture, right, that isn't made up of like feuding racial groups trumps your desire to maintain this aesthetic. So we're gonna say fuck you, you can't keep this person from buying the land, you need to do it, right? And if you don't, then hey, we're gonna be taken to court, you're gonna lose the land anyway. And of course, they have an interest in doing that. But I would say that they shouldn't.
yeah, but in the case of food, we're always talking about public accommodations, right? So if it's not breaking into your house, it's your business that serves the public in general, saying that that person can't be denied. Yeah,
I
or at
I
least
don't see
for
how
racial,
there
for
much
like,
difference.
well, for racial reasons.
Well, yeah, I just don't see how there's much difference between like my business place and my home in terms of like the right to like property that's in there, right? So my business place to me is just like it's a second building that I don't sleep in, that I use to generate money, but it's still the thing that I own, and all the property in there is subject to the same rights that the property my home is subject to.
Okay, so if would you be in favor? So when it came to, like, for instance, that racial covenant before, that's what I was going to say previously, but I was interrupted. When it comes to that racial covenant, are you saying that a group of homeowners can get together and decide and maybe make a contract and say that other people can never, like people that who don't match that aesthetic, can never come in?
Yeah, I would
Would
say
that
that'd
also
be
be
reasonable.
legal? Okay,
Yeah.
so meaning that, like, other homeowners wouldn't have that option. That would be a racial covenant, right? So, like, even if
Well,
a white person wanted to sell, they wouldn't be able to.
well, typically the way that works is you agree to like the HOA's like terms and conditions or whatever the fuck,
Yeah.
right? So if you're in that community, you've probably agreed to these terms or conditions to be in the community, right? So if you decide at some point that you want to leave, and you want to sell your home to like an Indian person or something, well, let's say, hey, well, you sign this thing saying that you're going to agree not to do that. You're going to agree to sell it to this kind of person. So that seems more like you'd be violating some contract that you agreed to with them.
Okay. So, all right. So, the contract then matters more than the rights. I mean, they've changed their mind. It's their property. They've changed their mind. But that doesn't matter. The contract matters more.
I mean, I guess they would have to negotiate some kind of maybe they'd have to go to Lactoid and figure out how to work that out.
That's how that's how contracts work. You sign it, right? I think all zoning should be replaced by HOAs. It would make all more sense.
Homeowners associations? What?
Yeah, over zoning, over city
Look,
zoning,
zoning's
100%.
bad. Like, look, when we talk about like zoning laws and things like that, there's some serious issues I have with zoning and things like that. But when homeowners associations aren't really better, that's all I have to say on that.
Nah, they're better for sure.
Fight.
Okay. All right. A bunch of busybodies in your like
No,
involved in doing this. Okay, great.
So to Doobie's point, the only thing
Fuck the house police.
the only thing that's actually like preventing, and I would never buy a house under an HOA, just to be clear, but I think they should be allowed. But to Doobie's point, I mean, restrictive covenants are absolutely like a thing. They wouldn't be able to be a thing in like for racial stuff today because of like all the laws surrounding it. But I mean,
unless you had your way, of course.
Right, unless I had my way. But you can do a lot of like restrictive covenants. Like you can restrict on what color. Like if you buy this house, you cannot paint the house a particular color because we don't like the house that color. And then what Doobie's saying is, well, just apply that concept, but to the people inside. That's all.
So hold on. You are in favor of the restrictive covenant, but you're also in favor of free association. So, like, wouldn't that restrict your ability to associate?
Well, so the idea is
voluntarily entered into that agreement,
right?
Though.
The idea is like, I go to somebody and like, I want to buy your house, and they're like, well, I'm not going to sell you my house unless you agree to these terms because it's my house. And part of like the contract here is that you have to agree to my terms if you want the house. And one of these terms is when it becomes time for you to sell this house or rent this house, here's a list of people that you can't rent it to. Let's say it's like Joe. Let's say like this guy has a feud with his neighbor Joe. You cannot sell this house to Joe. I swear to God. I mean, this could probably be like, you could probably allow, like, this would probably even like be upheld, likely. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it will. But like, you cannot do it based on race.
Clauses like that in real estate.
When it comes to like race and stuff, like you can't do that because of like legal stuff. But in principle, you can do it. If you can do it to Joe, why couldn't you do it to like everyone who looks like Joe? And if Joe happens to be black, I don't know.
Oh man, everyone who looks
so. Like, but what I don't understand here, right? Like the part that I just don't get, and you can help me with this, is that for people who seem so focused on property rights, right? That a past owner who's giving up their rights to their property, that they basically have ownership, some sort of sense of decision making, right, in perpetuity. That like. And for as long as that house stands, right, that property isn't like irradiated, right? Like as long as this is something desirable, that they get to say who moves in there. Like, how is that the case for a person with your ideology?
Sure. So, well, Prime, as we talk about in a different discussion, there's a caveat to this where I don't believe dead people necessarily have rights. And so, like the restriction
here,
all
back. let's not explore this. Let's not go down this deep dark rabbit hole.
It's about
deep and dark.
The estate trust courts would say otherwise.
Right. Well, so hold on. The estates and trust courts have carved out different exceptions. So there are like 21 years, at least in my state, is the length of time that you can have these restrictive covenants to after a sale, because this exact problem has been like grappled with the courts, right? Well, we can't have one guy who like has been dead for 500 years who said you can't build anything on this giant piece of land, which just now happens to like be in the middle of Manhattan or something along these lines. I mean, my principle on this, and I mean, people feel free to disagree with me, but my principle on this is I have no problem with these covenants, but once you die, if the other person breaks the contract, there's nobody with any standing to. There's nobody who's hurt, right? There's nobody to bring any standing. There's nobody who has standing because you broke the contract with who? Well, they're not a person anymore. So a contract requires two people.
What their will says.
Right. Well, I don't. Well, wills are a whole animal. I don't actually believe in wills because I think contracts require two people. I don't think the contracts require two people, and we just kind of suspend our disbelief that, oh, the person's really there. When you're dead, you're not really a person anymore. So why do we respect contracts between dead people and living people? I don't, which is why I think like that's the one exception I put into Doobie's
idea. This is a
where...
hill I'll never die on with lactose.
Of course not. If you die, then you lose.
Once I die.
Two things I want to say.
Because you know what I do, Wick.
You're like, all right, hang on. Two things. Wills are basically what. My God, like that's. I mean, why work your whole life if you're not going to give it to your kids? A and B. Prime, I've been waiting all night for this. The blackest night falls from the skies. The darkness grows as all light dies. We crave your hearts and your demise.
That's what you interrupted
By
for?
my black hand, the dead shall rise.
I hate you so much for that.
Better than
Black Lantern Corps fucking oath.
So, Scott, I actually did want to hear from you though, which is I know rare.
Yeah, I know
Scott,
you unmuted me finally.
Yeah, Scott. So I'm curious about that. Do you feel the same way in terms of like was it free association and be able to like a person in the past being able to draw up a contract that everyone has to follow for perpetuity? What are your thoughts there?
So I think that everything transfers to whomever they transferred it to. If they had no will, it transfers to the next of kin, right? So if let's say I'm Joe Schmo, I write a contract on I build a house, right? And then I build a house, and in one of the title transfer agreements within the contract of this house is you can't sell it to certain people, right? If you do that, then the title transfers back to Joe Schmo, right? But Joe Schmo dies, right? And so, and like 2 or 3 different people have been on this deed, and you're like, well, why should this rule with this dead guy apply to this property that's been transferred to these other people? What I would say is that if Joe Schmo dies, right, then the contract goes to the current property owner, and the current property owner has the right to rewrite that portion of the contract, right? So if Joe Schmo writes a contract, says can't sell to black people, right, and then Bob buys it, and then Sarah buys it, Joe Schmo dies, and Sarah wants to sell to black people, then she can change the contract because Joe Schmo is dead. So I'm with Lactoid on this for the most part. Now, if for whatever reason, like it could be written in the contract, right, that in the event of Joe Schmo's death, the right to title transfer, if you don't follow these rules, goes to Joe Schmo's daughter, Susan. And then Susan has the right to either say, well, I want the property back because you violated the contract that I held that was inherited to me from my father. So you could invariably take the first, if you wanted to, via contracts, you could put that in the contract. I don't know why you would want to put that in the contract unless Joe Schmo really fucking wants to keep his neighborhood white. I wouldn't buy that, but I think that you can pass on that portion of the contract rights to title transfer, so long as it's in the contract. But if it's not in the contract, then once Joe Schmo's dead, that portion's up to the private property.
Thanks for that. In terms of the racial competence, though, you said you weren't in favor of Jim Crow type laws. I'm not sure if specifically racial competence were included under Jim Crow or that counts as a separate doctrine. But one or the other, like that would be something that would decrease people's ability to freely associate, would it not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
so you would be
like Jim Crow laws that I'm in favor of repealing the Civil Rights Act, but the only thing that I want to repeal from the Civil Rights Act are the laws against discrimination from private property owners. The laws that state that the government and states don't have a right to enforce Jim Crow laws. Keep them, because that's restriction on states that may want to use their authority to force disassociation, right? They want to force segregation, and that is equally a violation of someone's rights as forcing association.
Right. The only controversial part is the part where like it forces private citizens to interact with people they don't want to interact with, right? Everything
So if
else
there's
is
only
just
one
like,
grocery store, if there's only one grocery store in town and it's privately owned and they say no black people can even shop there, what do we do?
Right. Well, you just talked about a market void. So obviously now there's a market for black
An
people
opportunity
to be
for
able
another
to,
one.
right? It's an opportunity
Amazon.
for blacks to be able to open a grocery store, and then all of the other people in the neighborhood, like let's say the grocery store they open isn't blacks only, it's everybody can shop here, then man, they're probably going to crush that other grocery store.
Unless everyone
because
else in this town is racist and doesn't want to
why do you want to live in a town where everyone is extremely racist?
If everyone hates you, why are you staying there?
It's never happened.
Well, then black people couldn't have moved anywhere, right? Like everywhere was extremely racist. Like it was literally black people would have to go to neighborhoods and integrate them themselves, right? With a whole bunch of white people, they didn't want them to be there. But still, they did it any which way. It was tough work, and they made it happen.
Real quick.
Like, oh wow,
no, just give me just 30 seconds here.
Phil, I don't need another Black Lantern.
Just trust me. No, I'm just.
Listen real quick.
Phil.
Okay, thank you. All I'm gonna say is, Prime, my grandmother was actually raised about 15 miles from a town called Nicodemus, Kansas. It was 95% black town out in the middle of Kansas, and there was some people that when they did leave the South, they went and started farm towns out in the middle of Kansas and a couple other places, but a lot of folks moved to the northern Rust Belt towns where the factories were, and that was where a big migration. But it wasn't that they couldn't go anywhere else, because my grandmother was raised 15 miles away from, and some of her best friends growing up were in this town, and so it's it was about
Are you
3,000
on?
to 4,000 at its
Kaylee,
peak.
please.
And with that,
is your
I yield to you,
argument
Kaylee.
that like everyone has the option of creating a farming town? Like, is that your option?
Well, I mean, I'm saying that was a thing that happened. Like, when you
Yeah,
were saying
some
that you could
people
only go
did
to
some
certain places,
things, and other people
there
did
was
other
other
things
op-
because
there
they
was
had
other
different
places you could go to.
circumstances.
But
Yeah,
what
I
we're
know.
actually facing here,
Sure.
but let's be completely honest. Let's be completely honest here,
Prime.
really quickly, and just admit something. What we're actually facing here is that you guys are the ones that can move and try these out, because the vast majority of the United States of America is doing it just fine the way we're doing it. So you're welcome to leave and try your way. We'd love it if you could leave and just shut the
So,
fuck up. It would be great.
Prime.
Bye.
Okay.
No, you don't believe in it now?
The
Do you
exact.
suddenly not believe in this? Do
well,
you suddenly not believe in this? Just answer me.
So if I own my property, you can't like come make me leave.
No, that's the thing. You guys want to start these communities. You disagree with the United States and its laws. The rest of us are fine with it. The majority are. You think that's wrong. Bye. See ya. I mean, or just
I was
get
here
over it.
first. You guys leave. Fuck you. I don't want to leave.
Deal with woke. Deal with woke. I guess you're just gonna have to live with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then deal with
do
us.
I do love how miserable it makes you guys, though, because like the fact that you're becoming
We had
like
the Supreme Court.
everybody's ignoring you. It's fucking fantastic. I love
Well,
it.
you're ignoring us until we get the Supreme
Can you
Court,
imagine
and
if
then
Clarence
all of a
Thomas
sudden you
gets to
can't.
write the majority opinion
Come
for the
on.
Supreme
Oh,
Court
wait, real
decision?
quick, Prime. I wanted to say before.
How many real quicks are we gonna have?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, like, to the grocery store. And is this some kind of bullet? Absolutely, right? Like, I'm going to give the exact same answer that I give to the incels, right? If you can't convince somebody to give you what you want, you just don't get it. That's how it works.
Just don't get food. You just
So
die.
I just
Or yeah, and
Prime
the incel who might kill himself if he doesn't get laid. He just
No,
doesn't get
nice
laid.
try, dude. Don't try. Like, don't try me with this, right? Like, this is what,
Yeah,
exactly
it's
why I limited that to
You guys
critical
value
services.
life and food. Like, I would rather have sex once before dying.
That's
right?
nice.
That's more valuable
Oh,
to me.
and like the
As opposed to
weakness of
dying?
your arguments, we have to sneak that in. Amazing. Wow. Great.
It's economic incelism. That's what this
Yeah.
is.
Oh, wow. All right. Sure.
Genocide,
go ahead.
slavery,
It's just
incelism.
like
Wow,
it's
let's just
amazing
go
how
with it, right?
you
Like,
how
Twitch bingo card in here, folks.
how you
I got
can,
like 5 more.
how your
I keep going.
ideology like allows for the deepest like the deepest of cruelties, right? Like it's incredible.
But it's designed for Prime.
So
It's
does yours.
designed for cruelty here, right?
Yes,
and they
absolutely.
call themselves principled afterwards. I mean, yes, I guess you're following this one principle slavishly, right, to the point where people die for it. Sure, whatever. But go ahead, Scott. Get highly upset about something.
No, I just wanted to quote Malcolm X at you.
Oh,
If
of
integration
course.
will get the black man that respect as the human being, all right. If segregation will get him that, all right. If separation will get him that, all right. But after he gets integration and he still doesn't have this dignity, this recognition as a human being, then his problem is not solved. There's 100 of these quotes from Malcolm X that was very in favor of separation, right? So, like, I'm just curious, like, why do you hate Malcolm X so much?
It's like, it's like. It's like, well, Martin Luther King is your
Why do you think
Jesus,
he's
right?
wrong?
Why do you hate Black Jesus so much, right? Malcolm X speaks for you all. Malcolm X said a thing, right? Why do you disagree with Malcolm X? I don't know. Yeah, because I don't have to
Just
answer
curious.
fucking Malcolm X.
I mean,
That's
you're,
nice.
right? You're
It's
not
good
coming-
for you. It's good
like,
for you. I
won't
don't
answer
say
when it
that you
comes
have
my
to
mouth,
answer to other
Ron.
white people,
You know?
right? Like, or I would say you have to answer to Bernie Sanders, but still, no, I recognize you as an individual. So I wouldn't say that like Bernie Sanders words have any indication on what you should believe. What the fuck? What a terrible argument. But if that's the best you got, then I'm glad. No, I'm winning my argument. Thank you so much. All right. So,
Yeah, well, you wouldn't
like,
answer the first
this
one.
idea.
Do you agree with all? Do you agree with all hobbits coming from the Shire as you do, Scott?
No,
Have you
I'm one
had
of the.
second
I'm
bread-
not
Alright,
one of
alright,
the Shire folk. I apologize. No, but you brought up. We're talking about this situation with grocery stores, right? And you're saying, well, what if this discrimination is still occurring in this community? And I'm like, well, why do you want to live with a bunch of racists?
I
Right? And I'm
asked you
saying
because it's
you were
historic. But
sounding-
Scott, I asked you. Wait,
No,
wait,
I'm not
I asked
talking to you,
because
Stabby. Why the fuck would I
asked
talk
you
to you?
because it's
You went from one
historic.
cult into another, and you can't follow
No,
the conversation.
no. I
we
asked
get
you
it.
because it was historic, and we already decided
in the
until
Shire?
side boss. No, listen. We decided that you should be able to go into a grocery store even if you're black and somebody doesn't want you there. And we already fixed this part. There's still way more to fix, and we're going to get it fixed. But
If you
your
could
argument
cast
already
any
fucking
spell,
lost.
what would
That
it
doesn't
be?
make any sense.
Why
It's
do
just
you
like there's no
why
reason to
why
engage with that.
why do you want to be in a racist town, right? Why do you or go to a place that doesn't want you? Because the services that they have there are better. Because access to capital there is greater. That's exactly why you would do that. That's exactly
So
why
you
black
you
families
want
are
to
dead
stay in a town
all the
where
time.
everyone is
Because-
racist.
because
against
You
they
want to
can't say
change
no.
that town, and yeah, like and thankfully, right, I think that every black individual, every black family did the hard work for people like me to still be at the neighborhood that I live in, right, used to be white, but then black people started to move in there, and then there was a lot of trouble, and there were clashes between individuals, but because of that hard work, we're in a better place now. That's exactly why. Because where you were sucked. This is a better place, or at least has more opportunity.
But why do you? But see, the thing is that don't you think it would be better to change the town if you can actually see who is racist out front, as opposed to the racism hiding because the government makes it illegal?
Fine, I'm not. I mean, I don't understand why we're making.
Don't you want to see the racists for who they are? The people that put
Yeah,
up
and you can do
white
that while
only
living
signs?
there. Yeah, sure. You can do that, but you have to live there within that community. So yeah, I would want them to not be racially discriminated in terms of housing.
Personally, I
No,
prefer
but
it.
you're not
I
talking about what I'm
agree.
saying.
Scott, I
prefer
get
that
you.
they
Hold on,
still
hold
have to
on,
be
one second.
let them in.
But Scott, I get what you're saying, right? Like
Mhm.
you're saying that like you want to have, if someone's going to be racist, right? You want to be explicitly so rather than implicitly
100%.
so, right? Yeah, that's fine, okay, but still, right? Like I want that explicitly racist person to have to give up their fucking house, right? They're selling their house, right? I'm buying their house. Yeah, you can be explicitly racist. You can call me the N-word on your way out the fucking door, but I'm taking the house.
Right, but they're not gonna now. They're just gonna do it from behind. They're gonna find a way to not sell you the house.
Except that we have laws. What you're saying that they're going to try to break the law, so don't make a law. Okay, well that's an argument. I disagree with that argument, but whatever, right? Like,
I mean, let's just say we're talking about a homeowner, right? Let's say we have a racist white person that doesn't want to sell to black people, right? They're vehemently racist, but the law makes it to where they can't sell to you, right? In situation A. And in situation B, I'm sorry, in situation A, the law makes it to where they have to sell to you if you put up like the best offer or whatever. They can't discriminate against you. But in situation B, they're allowed to discriminate against you. In situation A, what they do is they get another person to make an offer on the house that's better than yours. They tell you that your offer was rejected because someone made a better offer. They work with that person for a while, and then that person just dips out. This happens all the time. But in situation B, they go, "I don't do that because you're black," and everybody knows that they're racist. They're out
yeah,
in the open.
but
It
hold
can
on,
affect that change.
yeah, okay.
The
Oh, I see.
outcome is the same.
I see what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
You're saying that like the knowledge of the fact that they're racist is somehow more important than actually getting the goods and services that I need. They
No,
are not.
that's
They
not
are
what I'm
not.
saying.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter, right? Like you're saying that some people will find ways to break the law. Okay, well then we have cops, right? We have agencies to find those people and then punish them. So whatever.
So we're gonna use
It's also better.
the-
It's
I will
PrimeCayes,
absolutely use the
ACAB
power of
guy
the
is
state.
going to use the power of police to try and
Yes,
ferret
I
out the
will
racists
absolutely use the
that
power
are
of the state. Did
breaking the
you?
law
use
Are
Prime
you-
instead
Bible
of actually
to-
trying to change them
you-
from being racist.
Oh wow, yes, I gotta change. Hey guys, right before black people can get literally anything done, right? We should change the hearts and minds of everyone in the country, right? Or at least everyone who's directly within our path, right? Before we can accomplish any economic advancements at all, rather than forcing them to do
This is
so,
Kathy
right?
Newman.
Letting us get access so that we can start building lives in our livelihoods, right? We can start building that, advancing ourselves, right? Advancing our families, before we have to break. And before we have to convince all these people of all the monetary advantages they get from white supremacy, right? Yeah, give all that up first, right? While we're poor, while we have no access to resources, do all that first, and then you can advance, right? Because then you'll be sure there's no racists hiding around the corner. That's not a massive concern to Black people. Yes, people will be racist to us. People will be unfair to us, right?
This is a straw man of my position.
No,
It's a complete straw man of my position. What I'm saying is very simple, right? Is that when you forcibly integrate people, right? And you force the racists to do business, right? They find ways to circumnavigate that, and this leads to tension. This
criminals
leads to
equal
an
criminals.
increase
I
in that
know.
hate, right? But
Criminals
when
equal. I don't care about the
will you
increase in
stop
hate.
interrupting me with straw
No,
man?
no, I will not stop interrupting you. Excuse me. Especially coming from you, Scott, who interrupts people constantly. No, I will never stop interrupting
If
you.
you're gonna
I will
interrupt
interrupt
me,
you
make a
at
good
any
point. Don't straw
fucking
man.
time that I want. I will never stop interrupting you. Okay? Understand that. You specifically.
Now you're
but
now you're
any
having
which
a meta
way.
conversation
No,
about
like this.
interrupting.
Yeah,
still
that's
creating a
cute.
straw
Shut up.
man
Oh,
in the
don't worry. I
interruption.
don't have to because I'm not interrupting you anymore because I muted you. So once again. That doesn't matter. Like the increase of hate from criminals, who gives a shit? Fuck them, right? Like I will take their. I'm willing to do a lot more. I'm offering a fair price for their house, right? I'm willing to do a lot more than that. But for the prison's argument, right? We're just talking about operating in society as it is. Yes, absolutely. The point is that we get access to these services because those services are the most important, not changing the particular hearts and mind of a property owner. Who the fuck gives a shit? Not important. That can come later, right? After I've gained economic freedom, then yes, I can go back, right, and change his little mind, right? I can change his heart, right, from a corroded racist one to a heart of gold. Yeah, anytime. Who gives a
You're
shit?
nicer than me, though. You're nicer than me, though, Prime, because I would not do that. I think the best way for this to happen is for them to try to hold out as long as they possibly fucking can, and their neighbors become what they don't want to live with, and they can just sit there and continue to do that, and they can just die of anger and hatred at 120 years old. They're all going to be living so much longer that this is actually a perfect hell for them. Let them hurt. It's perfect. I'm fine with it.
You're a
What-
draw
Draw-
walk.
Yeah, I
Brian.
was gonna say,
Draw
what's
a
a
cup.
draw walk?
Drawak. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you see why like someone might feel as though like I'm not even gonna like touch the argument of like, well, don't you want to know who the real racists are? Because I think it actually does get from the point, which is like fun of like, and again, I think it's interesting how we're talking about like food and housing now when you're like we're talking before about like someone's website, right? So clearly, like it seems like the parts that make people most upset are like not even anywhere close to what this woman is undergoing. Like, Eduardo
No
trying
one
to force
disagrees
her.
with the. I don't think no one on
She
the
didn't
panel-
undergo
I'm closer to your
anything.
position on the website thing, actually.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good, right? Because I mean, that's how far we've pushed it. Where it's like we're arguing about a website now.
But we're not.
Well, no, the
we're not
argument
arguing about
shifted.
it.
She didn't undergo anything.
The argument
This,
just
hold on,
shifted.
this brings us to a point that I was wanting to talk about before, but I couldn't squeeze in. But since we're going back to this topic, Lactoid, I just wanted to ask, like, if you're going to make this, because earlier you made like a comparison between like forcing somebody's labor in that regard is the way that you viewed it, and slavery, right? So does that mean that like the people who own that lunch counter in the 60s, like, are they the new slaves because they have to like serve a black person at the counter? Like, do we take it that far?
Yes. No. So if it's under Jim Crow, like the government's forcing you to like have to discriminate, that's like I would call them the slaves at that point, right? If you own a business and like you're not allowed to serve black people, like you are being enslaved by like the government.
Well,
and the
no,
voter
I'm
base,
talking
which is
about
mandated.
forcing people to to serve everyone that comes to the counter.
Right.
instead of-
Yes. Absolutely. Right. And you have to understand here, like, I mean, think about it, right? I perform labor. You are telling me that I have to perform my labor for somebody else when I don't want to. I don't want to give this person my labor. I don't want to do something for this person. Do you understand how like this seems like I and you can like say it's different or whatever, but I'm like letting you know that when I argue with incels, I recycle the same logic, right? I recycle the exact same logic when I argue with incels that when I argue with this very topic, because the exact same logic applies. Why do you think you're entitled to somebody else's X, whatever that may be, just because you happen to exist? Just because you have a need for it. Just because you have a need for it doesn't mean that somebody else has to give it to you.
So all
Well, but
pussy
we're
is a
talking
woman
right. But the
selling it?
distinction that was made
So
at the
all pussy
time
is a
was
woman
that there was
selling
a
it.
public square,
Wait,
and if you want to
wait.
participate in the
No.
public
Let
square,
I go.
then you have to follow certain rules, and one of those rules is that you serve all comers. Now, if you don't want to, you don't have to participate in the public square. Like you can close up shop, right? Nobody's forcing you. Like slavery is forced labor, that you have to actually do the thing. What they're saying is you don't have to do the thing, but if you're going to do the thing, you can't discriminate.
No,
Like
that's not so. No, so it's more complicated than just like.
Also,
Okay,
slaves
so
didn't get
so
paid.
so for
These people are
yeah,
getting
well, so for
paid.
example, right? So like
Yeah.
Do what we say or close your shop.
it-
You don't think that's a
it-
wee bit of
yeah. So that like forcing somebody to like lose their property or forcing them to that level of inconvenience, whether that be bodily harm or whether that be property harm, is absolutely force. One example of this, like if we want to go way back, is like how the Spartans treated the Helots, right? The Helots were absolutely the slaves of the Spartans, and the Spartans would come down every year or every month or whatever it was, and like take all the grain from the Helots. The Helots could leave. They could actually leave the area because the Spartans were not actually constantly patrolling the Helots. They weren't watching the Helots most of the time. They just came by every once in a while to grab all their shit and leave again. That's really the relationship was. Just because you can, but the part there that makes it slavery is you have these Helots that are working, they're doing this labor, and they don't want to give it to the Spartans. It's their shit, right? And so every once in a while, they revolted and the Spartans came and like kicked their ass as usual. Like that's what happened. But just because you can undergo the inconvenience of like somebody else like using coercion to force you off your shit doesn't mean that like, oh well, you really had a choice in the matter, because you don't, right? You are like you're actually like being attacked.
That sounds a bit like saying that like being economically destitute is itself coercion to anything that you have to do as a result in order to remedy that destitution.
Because destitution is merely a state of not having something. It's not somebody else doing something to you, right? Like me not having your labor is not like it's not like aggression in the same way of like me punching you in the face, because one is me actually like hurting you, and the other one is me withholding something I absolutely have a right to withhold, whether that be my labor, whether that be sex, right? This is why I'm saying the incel argument, the incels are like, well, the women are actually aggressing upon us by not giving us poon. Well, sorry, buddy. Like, you don't have a right to somebody else's poon just because you need it.
So does this mean
hold on there, Lactel. Let's not get
I like that.
The positive rights of poon.
Earlier. Can I just address that really quickly?
Go ahead, Stab.
Lactroid, I really, 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 really need to know why the hell you are comparing a business where a service is offered to women having consensual sex for fun. Are you trying to imply that all sex is women selling it, or
no? Because so both could be commercial, right? Like, look at this. This is my question for you. A prostitution, like a brothel, should a brothel be allowed to discriminate based on race, or is that like horrible?
You're allowed to refuse the right to service to anyone, but you're not allowed to discriminate on the basis of race. No, my point remains. Why are you comparing women having sex consensually and dating to a service being offered that somebody can buy?
Because the service doesn't have to be like whether or not you buy it or not. It's merely giving a service. I would say that people should also be able to discriminate based on a voluntary service or a charitable service that they give. Again, but if we want to make them both commercial, we're talking about like giving somebody food, or like any other service, like let's say a massage, right? You can't discriminate based on massage. Let's go to the brothel example. Is anybody here willing to tell a prostitute, no, sorry, you have to sleep with that black man, because if you don't, ultimately you're violating the Civil Rights Act. You're not giving this black man equal opportunity to engage in like the market or whatever. You're part of the public square, right? You're part of the public square. You have to fuck anybody who comes in, but you can't discriminate based on race. Are you guys willing to bite that bullet?
I was just
sure
waiting.
That's
for
what
you to go ahead.
LBJ was thinking when he signed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any woman can say no. A woman can say no to anybody she wants to for prostitution. She can just be like,
I'm
I don't
saying
want to
anybody
whatever.
should be able to say no for any reason.
I'm
Really
just
quickly.
asking for that right.
Really quickly. You once again pulled it to prostitution. You were talking about dating and incels, and you are insisting that vagina and sex is some commodity. And it's really fucking fucked.
It can be.
Of course it's a commodity.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Penis is a commodity.
Of
course, you can buy and sell it. It is a commodity. Let's not kid ourselves here. There's an entire market.
We've had sex workers quote on these panels all the fucking time, arguing that should be a legal commodity in the United States. Like, what do you mean? Of course.
But if they want to sell sex, they can.
Yeah,
it's a commodity.
And what we're saying is that your ideology or your positions will lead to them being forced to have sex with people they don't want to, because they've turned their body, their vagina, into a commodity that they're using in a business.
Yes. Why is like everybody like so uncomfortable with like a woman having to like not discriminate when it comes to like that labor, but all of a sudden with every other labor,
How the fuck do you tell that it's
no one is saying like, look, we're all with you on the website, right? Expression thing. We're all with you on that. I believe, right? At least I am.
Just don't act like I'm crazy for like wanting people to own their own labor.
We've already established, and part of the argument today has been certain certain services and things are at different levels than others. So like healthcare, water, food are not the same as things like websites, sex, and other commodities that might be out there, right? We could agree on that.
No. So ultimately, going back to like the subjective.
Give me that. I can't even
because going back to that like subjective value conversation we had before. Ultimately, like what we value is going to be like an independent like determination. So like for example, like I would rather, and I mean this sincerely, and I think most people would agree, I would rather like live in a tent, like if I was like banging 18 hotties every day, as opposed to like living in like an apartment if I wasn't getting laid at all. But like for some reason, people think one is like a human right and one's not, even though I would prefer one or the other. It doesn't make any sense at all.
I mean, to go back to your like earlier conversation, right? Like at the start, before the panel started, about the blowjob thing.
Yeah, it's overrated.
Like a waste of time or whatever. No, okay, you're an idiot. If my girlfriend was withholding blowjobs, I'd absolutely feel like she was aggressive upon me. So I think that there is something to be said about restricting your labor or whatever the fuck. Like it can be violence in some way.
So
you are not owed your girlfriend's blowjobs.
I absolutely am. What are you talking about?
So here's the thing. So in order to say that something is right or wrong, right? In order to create a moral principle, it has to be universalizable, right? And it has to be true in all instances. This is the entire point of thought experiments that take things to the absolute limits, is to test whether or not it's actually true that something is morally wrong or morally unjustifiable or good or evil, right? The problem that Lactoid and I are like butting up against is we're pointing out that your principles, your ethics are not universalizable. You say that, oh, well, these things are wrong, but then we have this subjective evaluation of positive rights where, well, it's okay in this instance, but not in this instance. And so the argument then becomes, well, see, we're adding modifiers to it because certain things, right, are commodities that you must have a right to. We're like food or like medicine and things like that. And we're attempting to get you to justify that. And what the problem is that you're attempting to justify it, but the problem is that it goes back to the other things that you applied, which is that humans have a right to their labor or that they have bodily autonomy. So all we're trying to do is get you to see is the logical contradiction.
I'm absolutely thrilled that you're communist now. Welcome to the fold.
That's the opposite.
And I want to absolutely ensure that this woman, Lactoid was even nodding when I was saying it earlier when we started this and we were opening. This woman has a right to not have to do this website for people because it goes against her religious beliefs. As long as it's not somebody who is providing an actual permit to be married, I don't have a problem with this. Yes, of course it feels icky. Yeah, it is absolutely not consistent. Okay. Hey, when you guys are enough of a minority, we'll force you or wipe you out. I don't give a shit which. So, but until then,
what was that? What'd you just say?
Right?
I said, we'll force
I think
you
it's
or
actually TOS.
That is like cool, like actual kulak, not like
that's what exists beneath all the woke liberal lefty bullshit. Okay, it's literally hey, we're gonna if there were less of you, we'd kill you.
Wipe you out from the Discord. She meant.
No. And here's how we'll do it.
No, I don't want to go down this. I'm going to mute everything because I don't want to.
We're just going to do what
I'm on a fucking list. Like, Savvy, real quick. I'm on a list.
We're going to take their food and we're going to hoard it and they're going to die.
I don't need this as ammo.
Right? Hold on. We're going to take what Lactoid and Scott and Doobie all said about all of their little planned communities to make sure there was nowhere to live, no food, no hospital accommodations for certain aesthetics, and we're just going to apply it to you.
Muted it on my
you
end.
just now said it.
All right, so I'm glad that you totally ignored the entire discussion to say that you're waiting. You can't wait to have the power to make the trains run on time.
No, that's exactly
but setting
what
that
setting
aside. Shh, I get it. You're a fascist. Set that aside for a second, right? Again, the point is that is a moral or an ethic universalizable? If it's not, then you're not logically consistent.
It's a negotiation. I already said that, and you agreed
No,
with
this
me
is
on
the
that.
dialectic.
What if there's
It's
no
illogical.
hookers in the
Okay,
town?
so
that
which,
you're
okay, so
denying
here's what it's going to
logic.
boil down to. Scott, here's what it's going to boil down to. Who has the right to force others to live the way they choose? The Christian forcing everyone to be a Christian and behave that way, or the gay people forcing all of the Christians to live their way? No, we
Neither.
have to negotiate in the center.
Neither.
Exactly. So
No,
if we have
that's
to
not what you're
negotiate,
advocating. You're advocating
you've already
forcing people to live a certain way.
No, because I said she doesn't have to make the website, but you also cannot deny a permit to be married. That's pretty fucking
Yeah,
clear.
that's a
But
false
we're all-
dichotomy.
yeah,
You're
we're all
talking
on
about
board
the
with that.
state.
We're all on board with
Is
like
Scott
you,
aboard
you
that?
have to
Is
give
Scott who's ignoring it? Scott, are you on board with that?
What the fuck are
Yeah,
you
no,
talking
Scott-
about?
no,
I
Scott's on board with
literally
it.
told.
No,
No, I
no,
literally
having
told you
website.
before. I've already defeated this argument, but again, you're not paying attention, right? It's a false dichotomy because in one instance, you're
It's
talking
not.
about a private citizen choosing not to do business
Just
with
accept
another
it.
private citizen, and the second one is a person working for the state.
It's too deep.
Right.
You gotta,
I've
just
already,
say it.
I've
Just say
already
it.
accepted this. I
Okay,
just showed you
beautiful.
why it's a
So
false
that's the
dichotomy.
negotiation because then nobody
That's
is
not a
trampling on
negotiation.
anybody else. Yes, it is.
No, that's not because it doesn't
Because you
apply to the other
enforce
things you've
your
already argued
viewpoint.
in favor of.
You cannot enforce your stupid fucking schizo beliefs on other people through the law. You
Okay.
just can't.
Wait, but you're advocating for
You're the
doing
one doing that.
No, I'm not.
You're
Because
the
No,
one
not in a
advocating and
specific
using the
example.
law to enforce.
We're just
to
saying
enforce
not
people's
enforce the
beliefs.
law. That's
can't
all
turn
we're
a
doing.
person away from a hospital for being black. You cannot starve a person for being
Well,
black.
this could be your irrational schizo belief that you're forcing on other people. This is the point that's been made.
So this is the federal government forcing you to live this way.
But you,
Okay.
you
So the
agree
federal
with this.
government does
You
it,
agree
it's
with enforcing
okay?
with
What the fuck
forcing
are you
your
talking
beliefs on
about?
other people. Just admit that. It's okay.
I'm the huge minority. It's great. I love it.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna have to move
Well,
on.
there are very little of us, and you
What
can
are
just murder us. I'm sure you'd be very happy.
Okay.
Right,
Let's
I get
let's
you're a fascist
move
and you're
on.
happy
I think
about it, but
you'll
your
all be
argument's
super obedient because you're so afraid of all of the things coming for you, and it's nothing that's even hurting you. I think it's hilarious. It's great. You'll all be very obedient. Good little
Okay.
boys.
Okay. All right.
Like Napoleon
Genocide,
said, when you're
slavery.
making a mistake, don't
quick,
interrupt.
We're
hold on,
going
pause.
through everything.
real quick,
The Fed can
real quick.
force this.
Mommy dom energy doesn't really work if you're retarded.
No. It's Uncle Sam. That is not a mommy. That is like that
Okay,
old
but we're
man.
not talking to Uncle
All right,
Uncle
over
Sam. We're
here.
talking to you,
He's going
one of the
Okay.
people behind Uncle Sam, puppeting Uncle Sam, and say, "Hey, Uncle
No.
Sam, do this. I agree with you doing this, to Uncle Sam." We're saying, "Hey, Stabby, don't agree with Uncle Sam doing this.
Welcome
Tell
to the
Uncle
whole
Sam not to do this." Right? So you agree with Uncle Sam doing this. This is what we're talking to you about it.
Yeah,
I-
I do agree with him.
Okay, then stop diverting to hey, it's
Welcome
the
to-
law, or it's this is just how the
No.
government operates, or it's Uncle
I
Sam.
think
It's
that the
you.
Fed-
It's
I
your
think that
belief
the Fed-
system
stop.
that you
I
are
think the
enforcing
Fed-
upon other people that you're okay with the government killing people for disagreeing with.
Doobie, I think the Fed should absolutely be able to protect the woman who does not want to make the website. I also think the Fed has every right to protect the lesbian couple who wants to get married.
Nobody
And this
disagrees
is
with
a way
this.
to do both.
And the
Nobody
restaurant
keeps
Okay.
owner and the restaurant owner
And
who
you
doesn't
all
want to
obey.
serve.
we all right. Great.
we're
Great. Then we
disagreeing on
don't.
other-
We don't.
God.
We don't
When the Fed
disagree
doesn't do that,
with
overthrow
everything.
it.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Okay. Let's just. I think we got it.
Before she gets
We've
you
done
kicked
it.
off of Twitch.
We've done it. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Thanks all so much for everything. Let's guys, if you've been enjoying this content, hit that follow button if you've just found this. All right. This was a lot. But hit that follow button any which way, all right? Give us a pity follow instead. Especially social and chat. We're on social media, we got a lot of it, right? We're on Twitter, Discord, TikTok, and YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Helps us out a ton. Also, consider subscribing to this channel. That costs money, just $5. But it supports us a ton. You get our email to get ad-free viewing. And you'll be putting me through the torture of talking to these guys for another fucking week. And so I'm sure one of you guys will like that. So, yeah, support this channel. Usually Amazon Prime just PrimeCayes in this community to help us out. We do need your help. About that, this all goes away. We cannot sustain without your assistance. So, consider helping out the channel. All right, I'm going to give an outro to all these great individuals, but we are not done. The content does not end. We have more content for you. We are going into our open walk-on panel. And maybe a few of these superstars here will join us. All right, we'll start with one of those superstars. Hey, Zonia dead. Well, Zonia's a superstar. Sorry. I'm sorry. Zonia dead. Thank you for the 20-month resub. Resubs help too. Thank you, Zonia, for sticking with the channel for so long. If we get 2 more individual people, we can start ourselves a hype train. I consider doing that. We do need the assistance to keep this channel up and running. Sub to the channel, get bits or gift subs. Okay, so we'll start with our friend Desperado Sensei. Thank you for giving a sub to the channel. Hey, to CMA Gruder, who's always around here. Thank you so much. For that, if we get one more person who supports the channel, who subs, gift bits, or gives subs, we can start ourselves that hype train. Oh, XFix has done that. Thank you for that kind resub. 9 months stream, baby, delivered. Stuff to Prime to save us all from Capstan. Okay. Thank you. I'm actually just delivering more ANCAP to you all. ANCAP delivery mechanism. But CMA Gruder, thank you for giving us up, paying for this sub. Okay.
You Drawback.
We're gonna do the thing now.
Yeah,
Okay?
I don't do that shit on my channel.
We're going to give an outro. But we're at level 1 hype train. Let's get to level 2 hype train if we can. Subs channel, get bits of good subs. Lactoid, there you are, right? A superstar, all right? Lactoid, thank you for coming through. I always like having you here, even when you are defending racial competence. Defending lacking people that look like me out of neighborhoods. I appreciate you and all your
you medical care.
Yeah,
Prime, I would never do something so horrible. I assure you. I never
you would defend a person in court if they did it, though, right? The laws allowed.
Fabian's fans should have to pay you. Like if they can pay you $10 overall, you have to apologize to Fabian for muting him.
All right.
That's what you should say.
All right. So
you'll get $10 fast.
Yeah. No, so thank you, Prime, and thank you to everybody who spoke with me. Very entertaining panel. I'm glad we got to talk about something that's super up my alley and super interesting, and something that I happen to hold very strong political positions about. I am Lactoid. I am the anti-incel. If I never get poon, it is my fault, and I will work to try to be better. If you like what I had to say, you can find me on Anti-Communism United on Discord, Twitch, and YouTube, or you can find me on Anti-Com United on Twitter. I'm working. I'm pretty active on everything, so check me out.
Thank you.
But I won't force you to if you don't. I'm not gonna.
Okay. Thanks so much, friend. I mean, if I can never, like, I'm a friend, but I can't, like, go to your neighborhood, right? You know. Okay. Thanks so much. We're at level 1 hype train, 73% done. Help us reach level 2 hype train. We're almost there. Sub to channel, keep bits of give subs. How we power this. Or resubs count as well. And 2 minutes up on the clock. Scott, thank you. This was not one of our chill weeks, but still, I'm happy to have you here as always.
Yeah, I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. You can find me pretty much everywhere. Fabian Liberty, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, obviously. Yeah, I had fun. Bit of a shit show, but sometimes you have those nights. I just want to let you guys know that despite my fervent arguing in favor of freedom of association for the racial covenant communities, that I would love more Black followers, especially Black women. Follow as much as you want, be engaged in chat. I would love to talk to you all night long. Yeah, so I will be debating Jangle's Science Lab on Modern Day Debates tomorrow at 8. Come check that out. That little tiff happened here late night on PrimeCayes, so you never know what you're gonna get. So definitely watch, and do not donate money to PrimeCayes in the interest of me not being muted. Donate because you like the content, but don't do that because I actually love it when I get muted, because it only happens when PrimeCayes is running away like a scared bitch. It never happens because like I'm actually being egregious.
Friend, you are appreciated. condescension aside, you're always appreciated. Thank you for always coming back here.
I love
All
you
right.
too.
Love you too. All right. This is how we show our love to each other. Thank you for the people who are donating. We're at level 2 hype train now. 5% done. 95% left. Can we get to level 3 hype train? Sub to channel, give bits or give subs. Usually Amazon Prime says Prime Gaming here on the community. Helps us out a ton. Or resub. All that stuff moves along the meter as well. All right. We'll go to our friend Corey Campbell. Corey, you weren't as bombastic as usual, and I had a topic that was up your alley: the biology, the toads. I was like, this is for Corey.
Well, I apologize. I can, it's not surprising that I let people down. That's just my thing. But I can only speak for myself. Like I found this panel entertaining, but I will fully concede I probably was not the source of the entertainment. I was totally, as usual, sitting back and being a voyeur, typical, Corey behavior. But I still am, as always, grateful and appreciative to be on here with these familiar and fine faces. And yeah, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv, Corey Campbell 84, and on Twitter and Instagram, literally it's Corey Campbell. And yeah, as usual, Doobie, Phil, KOE, iCow, and Wick, and Stabby, and Scott, and Lactoid. Always a pleasure to be here, and love you, Prime, as always. Can't wait to be back.
Thank you. And you'll always we'll be back. If I can keep having you, I enjoy having you around, even when you're just sitting there looking pretty. Okay, all right. So thank you so much.
It's the best I can do. I promise you.
Level 2 hype train, 18% done. Can we get to a level 3 hype train? 2 minutes on the clock. Well, we're running the boats, trying to help us out by gifting or resubscribing for another month. Thank you so much. 30% done. 70% left. Can we get to a level 3 hype train? Sub to channel, give bits or give subs. Moving along, right? But 2.5 minutes on the clock. Let's start with let's go Stabby. Stabby, thank you so much for coming through, right? But however appreciative I am of you being here, Scott outshines me. Okay, Scott the whole time was DMing me, thanking me for my kindness, for the pleasure, right? And I'm like, dude, you don't have to do that. Like, we're homies. I got you, right? So Stabby, thank you for making his dreams come true. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Definitely subscribe to Prime. At least follow if you can't subscribe right now. Just so you know, you guys can find me on something on a Discord called the Fifth Estate. There are the 4 estates, of course, that we talk about post Enlightenment. We are the Fifth Estate. We're trying a little experiment on a Discord server. We have a lot of people from a very large debate server called Nameless Debates 2. And we want to kind of experiment with you have the right to be offended. And you also have the right to be offended to the point where people can't sit there and just make fun of you that you've lost because you happen to be offended. If somebody says something offensive, by all means, use that free speech and let's hand it right back. So we're kind of playing with this a little bit. And you are welcome to come yell at me. I absolutely adore sexist jokes. I get people very angry, and I love turning sexist jokes around just for the fun of it. So go ahead and come over to the Fifth Estate. I included the link in PrimeCayes thing. Please go see his Discord as well. Get your butts over there. Prime has to sit through all of this bullshit and deal with all of us for you guys. So definitely give him a subscribe if you can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And subscribe now because less than 30 seconds left on the hype train. Help save the hype train. Sub to the channel, give bits or give subs. This is how we do all this. We literally can't do it without your assistance. Support this community, or we can't do all of this. And this is a lot of fun, including our friend Wick. Wick's a lot of fun. Especially when he's in this Sith Lord outfit there, right? Wick. Thanks for coming by and being part of all.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's been too long, and I need to take less vacations and get sick less often. I will say this, right? We talk about misogyny all the time. We make misogynistic jokes, but we rarely get a chance to practice it. But tomorrow on my stream at 6 p.m. Eastern, we will be putting misogyny into practice. We will be doing praxis, gang, and we will be putting a woman back in her place in the kitchen. Stabby is going to cook for us live on stream as we take call-ins. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, they talk a big game about how misogynist they are, but how many of them are putting a woman back in their place? None of them. These people talk a big game, but Wick gets it done. So that's what we're going to do. And then Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Chud Logic. We're going to have Doobie. We're going to have Lactoid. And they're going to be fighting the good fight. Something I actually will be on their side for, right? Against the soy boy army. F-bombs for you. Portland is burning. And KF Logan. And we're going to be talking about whether or not Yee is normalizing fascism in America. It's going to be a great time. 6 p.m. Eastern Thursday. And gang, it's not done. It's not done. Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, we're having Not So Erudite on my channel. And she is going to be arguing with the world about therapy, its effects, and just how much is mental illness responsible for a person's actions, right? Or a person's belief structures. Do paranoid schizophrenics get a pass for bigotry? And how much should we use that to mitigate any bigoted statements they may say? We're going to be talking about it. It's going to be fun. We're going to have her facing Smugbug, Corantos, and other big names. So it's going to be great. Tune in my channel, 6 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv. That's a certainty. Be there, be square, or I don't know. But thank you. I love you all. Bye.
How's he not a gem, right? doing the good work, right? So thank you, my man Wick. We'll go to Wick's future, Aiko, thank you for.
By the way, it did. It took me 20 years to figure out that the way you pronounce it is Areopagitica, by the way, Fabian. Oh yeah, and so I also just wanted to thank Prime for being a draw walk, another hard to pronounce name. It's always appreciated.
I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
That's when Scott had cowered up, but it appears.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you so much. All right, being the bravest man in the world, obviously. Let's go to KOE. Phil KOE.
And thank you very much for the dramatic presentation, Phil.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem.
Phil KOE, close to my heart. KOE, thank you for coming through. Of your own special brand of human, honestly. So KOE, take it away.
Well, folks, as I'm known to say around here, all that being said, thank you for joining us this evening for the PrimeCayes stream, folks, for this amazing reverie. I hope, folks, every last one of you, if you are not subscribed, if you are not followed, I hope you make it back here happy, healthy, much the wiser. God bless every last one of you. Raise a glass to yourselves for being a part of this amazing community, folks. I can't wait to see you back here. We will all be back here, folks. I am Phil KOE, the King of Extreme. You can find me, of course, at KOE Nation on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. I hope to find you there, and I hope to find you there as well. Happy, healthy, much the wiser. But Prime, thank you for bringing me on this evening. Thank you for having all of us. Thank you for hosting this. Folks, every last one of you, please subscribe, follow, make yourself a small part of this story, the PrimeCayes story. All of you are part of it. Let's make it keep on going. And with that, Prime, thank you. God bless you. And I yield.
Thanks so much.
Get him in a kitchen. Fuck.
I made a mistake though, right? Because Doobie's next, so literally the opposite of this energy. Doobie.
Before you do, just let me ask quick. Lactoid, can you stick around for a minute after panel?
Absolutely.
Our Dark Lord and Savior, Doobie. Thank you also. God, for promoting racial covenants. It was amazing. Thank you for being here, right? Not for any opinion you might have espoused, but for always being a part of the community.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, Doobie in chat if you want to go hit him up at his Discord server, right? Biggest politics Discord server there is and most bombastic. All right, so check them out, but be prepared. All right, so we will continue on to our open walk-on panel right for this. Anyone here is welcome to join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion, my community. Really appreciate it. Just I do. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Peace.
All right. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. Blah blah blah. Hey Wick, thank you for the raid. Right of you. Thanks for the raid.